want to talk to Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who has been a friend of the program. I think he is a friend of the country. He is a friend, economically speaking, of the country. I will tell you I am absolutely 100% puzzled by him now, and that's putting it gently and kindly. But we wanted to get him on the air. He's part of the Gang of Eight, who is, that's Lindsey Graham and John McCain and Chuck Schumer, all trying to figure out how to fix this immigration thing. And Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona is here to explain why this is a good idea. Senator, how are you?
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome, sir. First of all, 3 days given to read the 844-page bill before the hearing was held on it. Is that enough time to be able to read this and understand this?
Well, this is a hearing. It's not a markup. The first markup won't be for another 3 weeks, or 3 weeks from when the bill was introduced. And so that should give time to read, and that's just a markup in committee. We'll have the markup on the floor probably a month later. So if this was a markup, then I would certainly have a problem with it. But hearings are to learn more about the bill. We've had 3 hearings now. We'll likely have more. I think we've had 21 witnesses. And this will be go through regular order in both the Senate and the House.
I saw your quote last week where you said, "Nothing focuses the mind like a bad election. And so for a variety of reasons, it's time."
Right.
Is this being pursued by political reasons or for security reasons? Well,
keep in mind, I've been pushing for immigration reform during my entire 12 years in the House of Representatives. So this is not... I'm not a Johnny-come-lately on this issue just because of an election. I think that this makes good policy sense, and what makes good policy sense usually makes good political sense as well.
How does it make good policy sense to forgive everybody their illegal activity for however long they've been here and to put them on this path to citizenship? I think many Americans are extremely confused by this. And every time I hear the words comprehensive immigration reform, it makes my skin crawl because I know what that means. It means they're on a path to citizenship, and it means we've forgiven all their sins, and it's like the laws of our country don't mean anything, and it means that others are lining up to get in here so they too can take advantage of this because they see us as an easy mark.
And beyond that, in the bill, only 90% of illegals must be stopped. I don't know why it's not 100%, but we're not even really serious about addressing the border when we have, other than Mexicans, and you know this, Jeff, other than Mexicans flooding over our border. I mean, this is the border situation is so out of control, and we're sitting here playing footsie with Chuck Schumer and Lindsey Graham and John McCain.
Don't forget Marco Rubio as well.
And that doesn't make me feel better, Jeff. That doesn't make me feel better.
Let me just say that I think you've just made the case for the bill. We need to focus on the border. We haven't done that. We're not doing that sufficiently now.
And what does this do to do it? What are you doing to focus on securing the border?
We're spending about $5 billion more on manpower.
Oh, okay. Well, we're spending more money. Okay. Well, that's
no. That's the start. We recognize that we need better and more fencing. We need more manpower. We need more surveillance.
What happened to the fencing from 2006?
Yeah, what happened to that one? That one has "shall build the fence" in it.
What happened to the Duncan Hunter's fencing?
Duncan Hunter said, "Oh, that'll absolutely be built." Glenn, it says "shall build the fence." Well, I said to him at that time, "You're a fool, man. You're a fool. You're in bed with thieves." And he said, "No, Glenn, it says shall. They have to, or they'll all go to jail." And I said, "Duncan, they should all be in jail in the first place." Now, what is it that this one's going to make the fence actually get built?
Well, it isn't built now. I said, complete. And we do need more fencing. There are certain areas of the border where fencing doesn't make sense, where it makes more sense to have surveillance and put your money in other things rather than a barrier like
Jeff,
that.
I respect you. I know, please, I respect you. Mm-hmm. Do you know that?
Do.
Okay.
I do.
I respect you. I like you. I think you have done a great job in Washington. I think you're one of the few that have actually kept your soul while you were there. I respect you. But you are talking to me on this issue like it's like I'm a third grader. Like I don't understand that we do need to do something on the border. I get it, but I don't think you're addressing any of the concerns that people have that have been that have. I don't want people living in the shadows. I know the situation with our farmers. I know the situation with America. America is so fat and lazy, our kids won't even do anything. And so who's going to take the jobs? I understand that. I understand the good people coming across the border just to improve their lives. I get all of that stuff. But could you please, without doing Washington doublespeak that sounds exactly like John McCain from 1987, tell me how we're actually going to deal with this, why you would believe that Chuck Schumer and Lindsey Graham and all of these guys actually are going to do anything this time.
Well, it's more than just the border in terms of enforcement. We'll finally have mandatory E-Verify across the country for every employer. That's the so-called second border. If people can't work here, fewer will come to live here. When you talk about comprehensive and how it's not a good thing in terms of enforcement, you've got to have more than just things on the border. You also have to have a legal framework for people to come and work and go home. As you said, we do have jobs that Americans, for whatever reason, will not do, and it behooves us to have those jobs still in America, particularly on the farm sector. So we'll have a legal framework for people to come and return home. You combine that with employer enforcement and finally being able to determine if a Social Security number is not just valid but is used by 12 other people around the country at the same time. That's improvement.
Okay,
that's a good thing.
All right. Well, I was told the Patriot Act was too. So tell me exactly how. You know, I understand we have legal framework. Well, we have legal framework through the Patriot Act to make sure that if somebody's overstaying their visa, they also are taken out. And that doesn't happen anymore because we had a couple of towers just down the street here in New York go down. A lot of Americans don't seem to remember that. In fact, a lot of New Yorkers don't seem to remember that. And now we have these clowns in Boston. The Secretary, the Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, is criminal. She's saying that, oh, well, we didn't know. And then all of a sudden, well, we did know. We were warned by the Russians. She said herself that they were pinged. We have all kinds of visa restrictions. The Saudi Arabian that we're reporting on, nobody else will because it's a conspiracy theory. Jeff, you know, well, maybe you don't know. We have multiple sources on this, very high-ranking government officials. Nobody will take it seriously, and I can tell you why, because the government is dirty on this one. This guy came in on a special visa. They never even vetted him. They didn't even know where he was. He already had an event file on him. So please, don't tell me that, well, we have E-Verify. We've also fixed the visa problem, and we have 15,000 people from hostile Muslim countries who are on student visas right now that haven't shown up to their schools. So how are you going to enforce this?
That's exactly it. 40% of those who are here illegally now didn't sneak across the border. They came on a student visa, vacation visa, tourist visa,
and we have the laws in place.
And have overstayed.
And it's illegal now. In place. We have the laws in place.
We don't have an entry and exit system. We know when they enter. We just don't know if or when they leave. That's a problem. That's a huge problem that we have. And until we have an entry-exit system that works, we're going to have this problem. That is provided for in the bill, and funding is provided to bring it about. So it is. I'm not saying that any system is going to be perfect. You're always going to have people sneak across the border or overstay visas. But we've got to have an entry-exit system that works. That's what we're trying to do with this bill.
Senator, I mean, this is an issue because I think you bring up some things that would be really good in this bill, but that's the issue with comprehensive reform when you're doing this Gang of Eight type of stuff. You're giving up other things as well. And I think the American people, this audience, look at this bill and they say, all right, people keep talking about amnesty. And, you know, there's this path to citizenship, but those are two separate things. Amnesty deals with whether you get punished for something that you did that was wrong. And in this bill, it seems as if people who came here illegally, against the law, came here into our country and decided they just wanted to work here for some reason, they get the slate wiped clean. They might have to do some things to eventually become a citizen. They might have to register and eventually learn the language and answer all these questions to become a citizen. But what they did wrong, they do not get punished for. That is amnesty, is it not?
No, amnesty is an unconditional pardon for a breach of law. This is not an unconditional pardon.
But they're getting what they wanted. They came here to work, and they get to continue doing exactly what they came here to do.
Well, those who are here illegally and wish to stay will first pay a fine. Then
how are you going to get them to pay a fine, Jeff?
No,
seriously,
when they
they're not going
to register. No,
they did the same thing in 1986. Nobody paid the fine.
No, yes. If you're here, if you want to have RPI status and come out of the shadows and work, then you have to pay the fine in order to get RPI status. That's the bottom line. So if you're unwilling to do that, then you can't get on this path.
But then we still have the same problem.
It's a long and arduous path. It really is.
But we still have the same problem then. They're still in the shadows.
No, but I submit that they will come forward.
And if they're going to come forward and pay a fine of whatever it is, $2,000 or whatever the penalty is, they're all going to come forward. 20 million people, which is probably more like what it is rather than the 11 million continually reported, are going to come forward and pay a fine to get on this path to citizen. Most of them don't even want to be citizens.
Well, I just I believe that they will come forward if they want to get on this path, and I think the vast majority of them will.
Okay, so what do you do if
that's the flip side of that? If you say they won't come forward, then what are we to do now? Why is the situation today, which is de facto amnesty, better than trying something like this?
Here's the thing, Jeff. There's not a single person, at least in my audience, that believes that any of the clowns in Washington are serious about actually securing our border. I don't know if the people in Washington, it really dawned on them that we had a few people had their legs and their hands and their arms blown off a couple of weeks ago, and our borders are just as bad, and our visa system is just as bad as it was after 9/11. After how many billions of dollars have we spent to fix it? And they're not serious about it. So there's a few of us out here that don't believe anybody in Washington is actually serious about fixing our borders, and it has nothing to do with Mexicans. It has nothing to do with seal the northern border too. Make sure that the doors are all locked and the windows are all locked, and then we open it in an orderly way. We need new immigrants. We need new people that want to be here. We need people who want to come and be educated here and go back and make their own homeland better. We need new people. It's not about racism. It's not about xenophobia by any stretch of the imagination. We just don't believe that you're going to seal the border. Now, when you get the border fixed, then I think the people, at least in my audience, would be a little more interested in hearing about, okay, now what do we do? But what happens is you give away the damn candy store, everybody comes through, and then they don't seal it. They don't prosecute these are just poor people, and how could the federal government, how could ICE even go into those businesses and shut them down? That's awful. What an atrocious thing that is. And that's what'll happen, and you'll still have the border open.
And they don't build the fence that shall be built and hasn't been.
Well, let me just say that we have a lot of commerce that comes through the border right now. So when people talk about sealing the border, I'm not exactly sure what they mean. In Yuma, for example, every morning between the hours of 4 and 8 a.m., you have about 10,000 legal crossings of the border in one port, one land entry. And that's a good thing because they come and work in our fields and return home.
Yes.
And so what we need is a secure border. We have a better situation than we did a few years ago. It needs to be much better still. But in order to do that, you need not only reinforcements on the border and to strengthen the border, you need it at the workplace as well. And yes, when you do a bill that can get through Congress, you do make compromises. There are things that I don't like necessarily about this bill. I think the caps on the W visa are too low. I think that we're going to need more workers than we allow for in there. But we have the reality of here of only 45 Republicans and 55 Democrats. And in order to get something through the Senate that will go a long way toward fixing the border and the situation we have now, you're not going to have the exact bill that you want. But I can tell you, having worked on this issue for a long time and working on it in the House in 2006 and 7, this is a better bill. We have better elements on the border. We have better triggers than we had before. It's a much better bill and much better approach.
Jeff, I will tell you, I believe you're smart enough to know that there are robbers that live in the hills and come down and cloak themselves, and you are surrounded by them. And I pray that you are awake enough to see them and to know it's sometimes better not to do business with people who are so unbelievably disingenuous and their goals do not line with yours. Their goals are not to actually do good and fix the country, but instead to destroy the country. And you know that you have those influences around you in Washington, I'm sure. If you don't, then that's another conversation. But I pray for you, and I do respect you, and there's not a lot of people that will come on the air and take this kind of line of fire and do it with grace, and you have, and I wish you the best. You haven't convinced me, but
there's still time. We'll work on it.
All right. Jeff,
Hey,
I respect you, and thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
You bet. Bye-bye.
And he is one of the best senators out there on spending.
Frustrating. That's what's so frustrating.
That's why you don't expect it. You don't expect it from him and Rubio. And
Rubio,
they've been duped
I'm
by this
telling
whole...
you, something's not right with Rubio.
Yeah.
Maybe
he's been great.
I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on that.
They've both been great on many things, though.
Yes, they have.
Jeff is I think Jeff is in a class by himself. He's
on spending. He's one of those.
On spending, he is
never moves the line.
Absolutely unbelievable.
And like you said, he faced this fire with grace.
Yep. And not a lot of people would.
No.
And not a lot of people would. But, then again, Newt Gingrich did it once. Let's see if Jeff comes on again.